Hello everybody, this is the kubeadm office hours. Today is the 27th of November 2019. This is the week right after KubeCon North America and the week of Thanksgiving, but we have a lot of European developers, so we decided to have this meeting. Let me share my screen. All right, so I've heard that we had a very good feedback on our presentation about kubeadm and KubeCon North America. It was held by Fabrizio and Iago, and we had a lot of people join this presentation, which is great. So do we have any new participants on this call? I don't see anybody. Let's proceed to the PSAs. So this is a quick announcement about the timeline of the 117 release. So the cherry pick deadline is on the 2nd of December. So that's next Monday. But we don't have anything critical. If we find something, I guess we have to work on it during the weekend. The release itself is going to be on the 9th of December. So that's like a week and a half from now. All right, so question I have for the group is when do we do the planning session for 118? Perhaps Fabrizio has comments, but I'm going to defer to Rosti and Rafael. What do you guys think?
So I think that we should probably like do this sometime just like either just before the winter holidays or just after them. Do we actually know what like the dates of the next cycle are?
What do you mean by next cycle dates?
Well, code freeze, code all release date.
It's not established yet. It happens usually right after the retrospective, so it's the 12th of December.
Yeah, because usually this is a long cycle, and like the winter holidays are probably a good time for a break for most of the folks, and people are usually not as focused just prior to them starting, so we can easily miss something.
I would be fine if that's fine for you, we can have another meeting next week where we have this big planning, and then maybe before the holidays we can have a grooming if we believe it's necessary.
Fabrizio, what do you think as well?
Unfortunately, next week I'm not sure I can join.
For next week?
Yes, I'm not sure I can join, and so feel free to start, and then we probably there is chance to reiterate because this is a long cycle.
Yeah, I think that Rafael's idea of reiteration later on is a good one. We can probably do a meeting on 11th of December, so we can basically have Fabrizio joining us, so we can do the overview of everything, and then we can focus on like the more little things later on in the cycle, probably just after the winter holidays.
All right, 11th of December is the planning session. Moving kubeadm out of 3 proposal documents. I wrote this document. I'm not sure how many of you have seen it already. There is a bunch of... Sorry? there are a number of pages here outlining some problems: build semantics, tagging, synchronizing, branches, problems with building CR artifacts, everything. So as you may know, we promised 118 to be the cycle when we move kubeadm out. So I think this is like the highest priority. Without planning right now, this is pretty much the highest priority for us if we want to keep our promise. So ideally, like everybody should comment on this, like try to find problems with what I'm proposing. I had discussions with SIG release, SIG testing, and the SIG architecture people, and there are a lot of question marks, but I'm leaving to this group to help with some of the decisions on our side, at least.
I agree. This is the highest priority for us in the next cycle, and so I will try to comment and to leave feedback before the next week, and I think this should be the real focus of the first planning session.
Yeah, I have the same opinion, and I'll try to look at it either tomorrow or on Friday.
All right, thanks. Everybody should comment. This is an open document. You don't need permissions. All right. So this is a topic, Rafa, by the way, I moved this from the future topics to today's agenda. We can just discuss it today, I guess. So in this ticket right here, and also before that, I believe in a random PR somewhere, we started discussing that the deployment of 2 replicas for CoreDNS in kubeadm is problematic. And I wanted to create a little diagram for today, but I didn't have the time because I'm on PTO technically today. So basically the problem right now is the following. If you have a single control plane node without workers, you can deploy CoreDNS, and CoreDNS is going to have 2 pods on this particular control plane node. And you don't care. If the node dies, you don't have a cluster because it's single node. If you have a single control plane with multiple workers, what happens is that the deployment also lands on this primary control plane node, where we call init. And if the node becomes not ready, you have a problem that the cluster is not working because you don't have an API server. So this is also like okay for this deployment with two replicas. But if you have a HA cluster, when you deploy the primary control plane node, the CoreDNS deployment lands on the primary control plane node. And if this node becomes not ready, the scheduling in Kubernetes is such that the pods are going to remain on this node and not going to reschedule on different nodes unless you delete them, then it's going to happen. So something we have been discussing with Rafael and John Sandeep is to potentially make CoreDNS a daemon set that targets control plane nodes. And this is an implementation detail for most users, most non-power users, because they don't care. They only need the DNS server to work. But if we do this change, we're going to break all those power users that are potentially patching the CoreDNS deployment object.
Yeah, not only that, I mean, there is also the DNS autoscaler that some people might use, and this relies on CoreDNS to be a deployment. So this DNS autoscaler is going to change the replicas based on different metrics. So maybe a daemon set is going, well, a daemon set is going to break that use case.
can we put it on a feature gate and basically leave it like disabled for the next cycle and probably enable it in the cycle after that?
We can, but given it's an low-level implementation, it feels to me like nobody is going to even test it. So the only purpose of the feature gate is for us to be able to properly deprecate this.
Like another possibility is to just like enable it automatically, and if somebody is actually not liking the idea, they can simply delete the daemon set and reapply the old replica set.
Or we can have the feature gate, but the feature gate has to be alpha at the beginning, and alpha features are not enabled by default. So yes, well, we can. My idea was to hard break in this case, like completely switch to coordinate switch with an action required item.
So one thing that I propose here is that we keep the deployment with 2 replicas, so we keep open for the people that want to use the autoscaler, the DNS autoscaler. And when we join, we have a new phase that is experimental. We can remove that in the future. I am not liking this as I'm saying out loud, but anyways, and this will basically check whether all the pods are running on the same node, and if that's the case, it will just delete one pod, or I don't know, half of them. It's now one out of 2, so it will be half of them. And then Kubernetes will reschedule that. If we add the anti-affinity rule, then it will actually make sure that they are running on different nodes.
Yeah, but this is going to, like I explained in the ticket, is that this is going to break not only the Kubernetes end-to-end test suite, but also kinder, because the logic there with the, what was the name of this? Preferred during scheduling, ignore during execution. This is the rule we want to use. But the problem with this rule is that I think the second replica is still going to be pending.
No, that only happens if you are using required. So there are 2 different anti-affinity rules. Let's say there is the preferred during scheduling, ignore during execution, and the other is the required during scheduling, ignore during execution. So if you use the required one, then it's going to be like you say, like one is going to be pending because the scheduler has no other place to put this pod, but the preferred one will try to put it on a different node, but if it can't, it will work. I mean, it will use the same node.
Yes, but I guess we still have to manually move it.
Yeah, we can just kubectl delete the node with the client.
Sorry, but if we use required, what happened? I created the first node. I have 2 replicas. 1 remain pending.
Yes.
But it is fine because I'm not compromising the, let me say, the reliability of the cluster because I have only 1 control plane node. As soon as the second control plane node join, the replica gets scheduled, and so I'm balanced.
Yes, but the pod is not running, and the end-to-end test suite is going to fail. It's pending. It's not running.
And which end-to-end suite? Our end-to-end suite, the kubeadmin one?
No, the official Kubernetes end-to-end suite. It expects all the pods to be running. Also, I believe kind and kinder also do this.
Yeah, many test suites.
Sorry, but it makes strange to me that an end-to-end test. Okay, I think that it tests. What is testing? The core DNS or the deployment, the DNS behavior or the deployment behavior?
It's just how the suite works. It expects all the pods to be running before running the suite.
The Kubernetes end-to-end test, you mean the one which is run using Kuba?
We also run it with kubeadm. Basically, the one that is present in the /test end-to-end test folder.
But are you sure? Did you test it? Because also the end-to-end test create and deletes pods. So it happened during the end-to-end test that there are pending pods and whatever. So and this does not create problem for the end-to-end test.
Yes, but I'm talking about the beginning. When you run the suite at the beginning, it expects all the pods to be running.
Can't you make the suite wait for all pending pods?
Yes, you can. I think you can customize it, but we are entering this space where we have to customize the suite because of this pending pod. I don't want us to do this, to be honest.
But sorry, Luca, but we are always running the test, the end-to-end test, when we have more than one control plane node.
Yes, and
So that means that in the kubeadm end-to-end test, we already have joined 3 nodes, and that means that all the 2 core DNS pod will be scheduled.
no, because when you create the primary control plane node and you join the 2 extra control plane nodes, right now the core DNS pods are still going to remain on the primary control plane nodes.
No, sorry, I try to explain. So what we are discussing is that I put the required anti-affinity rule.
Okay.
Okay, and that means that when I create the first control plane, only 1 core DNS pod gets created.
Okay.
Okay. Then I created the second one, and if I run the end-to-end now, I have a problem.
Yes, it's going to fail because one of the pods
Yes,
is pending.
but in the kubeadm end-to-end test, we are not running end-to-end now. We are joining a second control plane and a third control plane before running end-to-end. That means that before running end-to-end, I have all the core DNS pods scheduled.
What happens if somebody decides to run a part of the Kubernetes end-to-end test suite on a node created by kubeadm, and if they decide to not join any more workers or control plane nodes?
Yeah, and I think we can expect many people to be doing exactly this, like creating a single control plane cluster, waiting for all the pods to be ready, and then run whatever they want to run. So
Yes.
I guess we are going to get some issues with that, like people reporting that they get only 1 out of 2.
We're pretty much
ready.
going to get issues in the lines of, hey, my pod is pending. Please explain why this is happening.
Okay, I have another proposal. And what if we start with core DNS with 1 replica, and as soon as we join, we move to HA, we scale up core DNS?
Again, happens. If we scale core DNS to one on another control plane node, what happens if you shut down these 2 nodes? The DNS server is going to die. It's not going to automatically move to another working node.
Well, it
There is
depends
a
on the
threshold,
system.
right?
Because I tested it, it happens exactly like that. Unless you delete the nodes, or if you wait, I know the grace period is something like 5 minutes. Unless you wait or manually delete the node objects, the core DNS pods, the replicas, are not going to move to healthy nodes.
But,
Okay, but
that's
this part, please go on.
Sorry, I was saying that like if it's not getting rescheduled, it's kind of expected, since we're parametering like the node monitor grace period and the pod eviction timeouts. So I would expect the pods to not be rescheduled unless the time that we allocated was consumed.
So there's also a way to reschedule them. I think I forgot the exact mechanic, but you can wait if the node has the not ready label, annotation, you can automatically reschedule the pods. I think this also works. But anyway, we're trying to work around the fact that we should be deploying coordinates as a daemon set, in my opinion. Anyway, I don't see why are we not deploying coordinates as a daemon set.
It would break the cluster proportional autoscaler. Like if we don't have users for that, well, I would be surprised, but I guess some people might be using it. Plus, given the, I don't know if we can, but given the deprecation policy, I think that this counts as a behavior. So we would need to go through the deprecation cycle, at least for this.
Okay, maybe we should go back to the original proposal from Rosti to introduce this as a feature gate alpha. Coordinates is a daemon set. And in the next iteration, when this beta, we can enable it by default.
Yeah, that sounds good as long as we don't have users that rely, well, known projects that rely on coordinates being a deployment instead of a daemon set.
So I have a question about the autoscaler stuff. I haven't seen any users whatsoever relying on this functionality.
Yeah, I would send an email, and if anyone doesn't reply, means that they don't care much.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this was just theoretically, right? There is this project that actually makes sense to scale core DNS depending on different metrics. So maybe some people were using it. I don't know. I don't know anybody that is using it. But this was just the comment, right? That if we move this to a daemon set, we are breaking that use case, and they would have to redeploy that as a core DNS, as a deployment. Or
Sandeep, what do you think about this discussion?
So having a deployment and using the autoscaler makes sense. If CoreDNS is deployed as a daemon set, that means for every node there would be one CoreDNS replica. Will that not be an overkill?
So my proposal was to, because normally you don't need more than 3 control plane nodes. It's overkill to have more than that. My proposal was to use the daemon set to target only the control plane nodes. So you can have 3 pods.
Okay. Okay. So, and in case someone needs more than the 3, for example, for 3 control planes, they have 3 coordinates, and if a user wants more than that, then what does a user do?
I think that scaling the DNS service should be part of scaling the control plane. Linking them together makes sense to me. So if somebody wants to run 5 control plane nodes for some reason, if 4 of these die, the final one, the 5th one, will still have a core DNS server running.
But like, depend on like, I would check with SIG scalability. I know that they're doing some stuff in this space. So like, at least we can get an idea on their supported SLOs and the number of DNS, or at least control plane pods that they're using. Because like, yeah, it seems like users might want to have a limited number of control plane nodes, but still scale the number of DNS if the number of queries are too high. But
yeah,
I would refer to SIG scalability for this.
I
So
agree
I
with
think
that.
I have an
Go ahead.
sorry. I think I have an answer for that. So we usually run the 2000 node and 5000 node scale tests with 6 scalability before every release. When they run this 5000 node test, we using the autoscaler, the number of replicas scale up to 131. So yeah, so those tests use kubeup with the core DNS deployment, not specifying any replicas, but depending on the DNS horizontal autoscaler to ramp up the number of pods as required. And the maximum number, everyone, is 131. Yes, it's 131 for 5,000 nodes. So in this case, if it was a daemon set, for example, I do not know how it works. If it's not targeted for a control plane, that would probably be like 5,000 coordinate spots for 5,000 nodes.
So I guess the allowing the deployment to scale is good for this basically the stress test that we have in 6 scalability, but given kubeadm is doing like the minimal viable cluster, should we really target this scenario even?
Like, my question is, would it block any users from using kubeadm at scale? Like, would they have to do some extra patching to
Yes.
basically revert what we did?
Yeah, but yes, but now some users are already doing the patching because the pods land on the same node that can die. They have to reschedule.
My personal opinion is that we should not move to daemon set. Today, users are not required to patch. They have only to delete a pod, and it gets rescheduled elsewhere. And in my opinion, we have to seek for a solution that use daemon set and rebalance when a second control plane joins.
As a temporary solution, I'm kind of +1 with what Fabrizio proposed, with one core DNS pod, then scaling when we add control plane nodes.
So I think that we can probably start with 2, and whenever we actually join a new control plane node, we can actually increase the replica count by 1.
So, I mean, instead of touching the replica number, I think we could actually start with 2 and kill pods, like half of the pods that are ready. So they will get rescheduled if we have the anti-affinity rule. Because if there are other components touching the replica, then we will be touching the replica as well when new control planes join. And I prefer to just delete half of the nodes of the pods that will not have any impact on the cluster itself, and they will just get rescheduled by Kubernetes.
You were breaking there, Rafa. I couldn't hear what you said.
The thing is that if we are touching the replica number, another components are doing as well, like the DNS autoscaler, then we are going to have issues. So I propose to, instead of touching the replica number, that we remove half of the pods that we have already of core DNS. So we won't have any impact on the service, and they will get rescheduled automatically.
I mean, seems fine to me. I wasn't considering even the autoscaler stuff. So, do you guys want to move the discussion in the issue, because we are not getting anywhere in this discussion?
Sounds good to me.
Right. So, if you have any ideas, let's comment in the issue. Do we even want to target this high scale clusters, or should we, like, what should we do? All right. The next one on the agenda is a kubeadm token discovery optimization PR that I sent. I think Rosti sent a comment today. So basically, this PR refactors our discovery/token file. It changes a lot of stuff, but it's much better because we are now not retrying over a lot of the logic that we have previously. We are now retrying only on the API calls. And if you're interested in this refactor, please take a look. Also, it has a lot more unit tests here now. And I want to merge this in 118, ideally. I also created some interesting pictures here. Maybe this will help you understand the changes.
And the background here is that in the old days, we used to have an array of like several several API servers which can be used to join. That's before the load balancer in front of the API servers. So this is a leftover too complex code from those times.
Yeah, and that complex code could have been refactored still to be better with the multiple server case, but anyway. Let's have a look at this. Rafa, you want to comment on the CRI socket notation?
Yeah, so really fast on that. Basically, when we are upgrading the kubelet, we want kubeadm to upload the kubelet config map for the new version. We could do that ourselves. I mean, it's not really critical for us to do that through kubeadm, but it will be good to have that. And when running the upload config kubelet, phase, then it also tries to annotate the CRI, which also, it has some output about errors because it couldn't. It has no config, so it doesn't know how to patch or what to patch. So ideally, we could remove this CRI socket annotation logic from the upload config kubelet phase. I see that you proposed, Lubomir, to maybe move that. The specific logic is a very small function call to a hidden phase. So maybe we can just call, upload config kubelet. Nothing will be tried to be done regarding this CRI annotation. And maybe this phase can be a children of upload config itself being a hidden phase. Maybe that should work.
You were breaking up again, but I think we understand the problem. Fabrizio, you had a big comment here. Do you want to clarify your opinion?
My opinion is that we should be careful in mixing up upgrade and change the cluster. And second, I don't fully understand the use case, because calling upload config without passing a config does not really make sense to me. I don't understand what are you trying to achieve. So if you can provide more detail on the issue, probably this will help me.
Yeah, I will do that.
So back when we created the phases, I was really like feeling we should not put the patching of the node stuff inside the upload config phase. It felt wrong back then. I saw complaints about this from VMware people, and I saw complaints in the kubeadm issue tracker by Rafa and somebody else, I don't remember when. So it feels like we really shouldn't be doing this. Patching the node object, should it be a visible phase or should it be a hidden phase? I don't know, but it feels.
My answer here is that we should not patch the node. So patching the node was a workaround because there is no attribute at kubelet level that give you visibility on which CRI is running on that kubelet. And so we added this annotation, and there was a kind of agreement with SIG-node that at the end this annotation should become a kubelet field managed by kubelet itself. Now, I recently saw that in kubelet there is a new field that provides info about the CRI which is running in the kubelet. but I'm not sure that it is the exact information that we need. So if you, the real answer to this thread is that we should work to get rid of their notation and to make the kubelet provide us all the information we need.
Yeah, I agree with that. For the use case, Fabrizio, really fast. So I think this is something that more people are having. Like if you have a cluster created with kubeadm with 115, for example, and you want to upgrade to 116, but you don't want the default. I mean, you want to tweak some of the defaults from the kubelet that are on the kubelet config map. You want to change some flag during that upgrade, maybe because the kubelet had a new flag and the default is not something you want, or you want to change something, is to to be able to do that in a separate step. So I can upload the config map for the kubelet, and then I can run kubeadm upgrade apply.
Okay, so this is a link to upgrade, but how? Because in the comment I saw that you were talking about when I call this phase without passing a config. Why, from your discussion, from your description, you want to pass a new config?
Not really, because I mean, the kubelet default config map you will just use the kube config parameter, so it will upload the default kubelet config map, and for that it doesn't need the config, as far as I remember.
Okay, let's chat about this offline, so we don't stop the. It's just not my problem to understand the issue, so I will ping you and discuss this offline.
All right, so I think we should remove this completely at this point. I don't see why we have this. We have auto detection, and also it's not an annotation, Fabrizio, but I'm seeing this in the node object.
That's just the like kubelet is learning in Docker mode, and this is the Docker version that's behind it.
Well, what happens if we use cryo here? Do you know?
It will say CRI and then something that I can't remember exactly, but probably the version of it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we still don't have a way to detect like the actual.
No, ideally there should be a CRI socket field inside of the kubelet component config, and we should be using that instead of the annotation, but still such a field is not present inside of the kubelet component config, and it might be actually delayed for some time, at least until the folks there actually get rid of the Docker shim.
Oh yeah, all right. So should we keep our annotation? Should we move it to a new phase? We are not making any decisions.
Another possibility is to just look up at exactly what parameters we are actually giving to the kubelet.
Yeah, I think we can follow up on the issue.
Okay, I'm +1 on removing this one way or another, I guess. All right. Tunde, you have a topic.
Yes, I do, Oliver. So this is a bug that Raphael had opened. It has to do with the kubeadm upgrade apply command and kubeadm upgrade node not being consistent. So yeah, that's the issue right there.
Yeah, you said the PR for this, so I remember. Okay, so the change is to on nodes that are joining. On nodes that we call upgrade node instead of upgrade apply. Should we also write the kubelet dynamic environment file? And it's kind of weird because the kubelet environment file is shouldn't be modified during upgrades. And I wanted to ask you, Tunde, do you have a use case where you want to modify this object, this file?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do see is that customers don't upgrade, make changes to kubeadm configuration file, like maybe passing in things like pod infra container image, and also wanting to modify the kubeadm environment file. And so during the upgrade process. So in this case, if this feature doesn't exist, then such flags won't be added into kubeadm, and the user would have to modify that kubeadm environment file manually. Also,
Okay.
also like with the upgrade apply command, in the case where if the configuration exists, if the environmental file exists and you make a change using the -- config flag, the change doesn't get persisted because it only gets changed during, in the only case where it gets changed is if that file doesn't exist.
I see. So a couple of problems. Upgrades should not modify the state of the cluster, even if it's only about changing the pause container. So this is something that kubeadm should not do. Long term, like I already explained in this discussion here on the screen, we shouldn't modify the cluster using upgrades. And I think instead of adding this, basically the diff you're doing here, and also based on Rafa's proposal, instead of doing this, we should actually remove the same logic from apply. And someday we are going to support the changing the cluster functionality one way or another.
I think that's reasonable. I mean, we have the same problem at SUSE here. And to add to that, if we have a way not only to apply changes to this file, I mean, the M file is going to be gone at some point, right? So maybe we have to think about a way of what we were discussing before, like I can upload the kubelet config or patch the kubelet config into the cluster and then reapply those changes, and then they will get written on the kubelet config file instead of this environment file that is kind of a hack, a temporary hack.
Yeah, the problem with the environment file is the Docker regime. The flags for Docker regime are not present in the kubelet config.
Yeah. But I mean, for the long term, it's going to be gone at some point, right? It's the M file is.
Hopefully, this is horrible code. This is such a bad thing to have and maintain. And I don't think we should extend it further to, well, for a couple of reasons. We shouldn't support reconfiguration during upgrades, and we shouldn't bind more kubeadm commands to this environment file logic. So yeah, I think that users should manually change the environment file if they want to modify something.
So is the vote right now to go ahead and just remove the right kubelet dynamic environment file from upgrade apply and upgrade node?
This is my +1.
Mine as well, yes.
Does that mean that we also need to remove the -- config flag from upgrade apply?
Yeah, I created basically a proposal to deprecate it, but it saw a lot of negative comments because it's a sudden change. We don't have.
I think that the problem, okay, we agree that in the long term, the upgrade should only change the version, and something else, which is the operator, should take charge of changing the cluster. This is the long term.
Is it final, Fabrizio, that the operator is going to be responsible for reconfiguration?
As of today, there is no other proposal.
Yes.
Okay, so as of today, the operator is candidate for doing this.
I see.
Okay, and there is no other concrete proposal on the table. So as of today, the operator is the candidate. and but I think that we should help the user in the meantime. So I don't like it, have it supported by a grade, but I think that we should merge the change as it is.
All right, more comments by others?
Just very fast to answer to Tunde. So removing the config flag from apply, I don't think that would be good for us because, for example, we are using this config to also pin the versions of core DNS and kubeproxy, for example, well, not kubeproxy, but core DNS and etcd. We are using this feature from kubeadm upgrade apply config.
I think that we should probably like table the discussion for now because we are entering the kubeadm operator field and stuff like that. But for now, I think that we can probably just remove the writing of the dynamic kubelet file from upgrade apply as well.
All right, we seem to have...
I not agree. I think that we should add in upgrade node as well.
All right, we seem to have split decision here. Today is an interesting day. Out of all these topics, we didn't make any progress on actually making decisions today. But all right, let's continue discussions on the issues in PR. Does anybody else have any more topics for today? We have 12 minutes.
If you want, I can give a quick update from KubeCon, really quick. So it surprised me the interest that people still have in kubeadm. So that means that what we are doing is important for people. And there was a lot of discussion around the operator and question around the operator, but also question around make kubeadm vendorable and kubeadm as a library, which is an interesting topic raised from user. And basically the roadmap presented for 2020 was accepted, and feedback were positive. And let's see if we from the request to the community to have more help, we have answer. That's the most important point for me from KubeCon, but we have to wait a little bit more.
All right. By the way, somebody's writing in chat. Thanks, Fabrizio. Lee sent a PR for add-ons, and I wanted someone from this group to volunteer as a reviewer, ideally a couple of people.
You
and
can
also,
count me on this. I'm interested.
Sorry?
You can count me on this. I'm interested.
Okay. I'm going to assign Yasin. Somebody else?
You can assign me.
I can help.
You can assign me, but the point is that it does not make sense to review a PR when we have the cap still open and with a lot of pending questions.
Okay,
and,
so
just to finish, the core issue that we are facing is that we are looking at the Dawn project as a replacement for the current add-on management that we have in kubeadm. But in order to do so, the add-on project has to take charge of a series of problems, like, for instance, managing the compatibility matrix between Kubernetes and one add-on. And it seems that they are not taking charge of those programs. So that means that with the current status, the add-on project cannot be a replacement for add-on in kubeadm in the current status. And the only thing that the add-on project can be is a an alternative for managing add-ons, which basically doubles the effort for managing add-ons in kubeadm. That is something that I'm not really happy to do so. So this is why, in my opinion, we should have a clear answer to the question on the CAEP before proceeding.
Basically, you are referring to some of these answers, questions that are not answered.
Yes, I'm referring to the question here and also to the question that you and me wrote in the Google Doc that this document should answer to.
I see. So I'm sorry, I didn't know that some of these questions are not answered. I completely agree that basically the KEP has to be modified to be implementable, and only then we can proceed with the review. So this is the answer. I don't think Lee was on the call, but because he was asking from us every week almost to review his PR, this is how we should proceed. This has to be changed to implementable. All right. Anything else? We have 8 minutes.
So I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask the question, but is there anything for like new kubeadm beginners, like maybe watching long-term kubeadm members fixing a kubeadm issue? Just like maybe like sessions where you could join in and watch someone who's been actively working on kubeadm for a long time fixing the issue and just shadow that.
I believe Fabrizio wanted to create something like that, or at least I think I saw a mention about this during the session at KubeCon.
So for sure there is the recording of the code walkthrough that Lubomir created. We don't have, let me say, pair coding session, but I'm planning to record a session where I explain how to set up a good environment for kubeadm, a good development environment for testing kubeadm, and maybe that unfortunately, I cannot do this weekend and next one because I have other stuff to do. But I will ping you and try to manage to do this together. So while I do the recording, I have a feedback from a person interested in the recording, so we can do this better together.
Thank you.
All right. Any other topics?
Lubomir, it will, if you can add also the link to your recording, I think that it will be useful. It is also in the presentation of the KubeCon, by the way.
Well, I can add it. Do you want me to add it to the agenda?
Yeah, if possible. Also after the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, here it goes. Any other topics? All right, let's call it a meeting. See you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank